It started with the sound of the front door opening, when I knew I was home alone. It was the smell of a strange perfume, sickeningly sweet, lingering in my own living room. That was the moment my stable and carefully planned life, shattered. It broke apart into the time before and the smoking crater of what came after. My name is Eliza Vance. I am 38 years old, and I am a forensic auditor. My job is to find the rot hidden beneath polished surfaces, to follow the faint scent of decay until I find the corpse of a lie. I am good at it. I am precise. I build my life on facts, on ledgers that balance, on foundations that are sound. I returned home from Chicago a day early. The audit had wrapped up sooner than expected, a clean case, and I wanted to surprise Marcus. I remember feeling a small, uncharacteristic flutter of anticipation as I drove through the manicured, oak-lined streets of Barton Crest. Our neighborhood in Austin was a testament to curated success, and our house was the cornerstone of my own carefully curated life. I parked in the driveway, noting Marcus's car was already there. It was only 3 in the afternoon, early for him. I let myself in through the front door, expecting the familiar, comforting silence of an empty house. The air was still, but it felt wrong. It was thicker, and it carried that sweet, cloying perfume I'd registered just moments before. Then I heard the whispers. They came from the living room, my living room. The room where I had spent 3 months agonizing over fabric swatches for the custom-built sofa. The room where the light from the bay window hit the hardwood floors in just the right way. I walked toward the sound, my carry-on bag still clutched in my hand. The whispering stopped. He was on the sofa. My husband, Marcus, all 40 years of his carefully maintained charm, was sitting there. But he was not alone. He was holding hands with a woman, a girl really, who couldn't have been more than 24. She was blonde, soft-looking, and very, very pregnant. It was not a 5-week bump. It was a pronounced, undeniable swell of 5, maybe 6 months. The scene wasn't frantic or sexual. It was worse. It was tender. His thumb was rubbing the back of her hand, a gesture of quiet possession I knew well. The air left my lungs. Everything seemed to slow down, the motes of dust in the afternoon light hanging suspended. My world, which had been perfectly balanced just seconds before, tilted on its axis. This was not a data point I could process. This was an absurdity. I must have made a sound, or maybe they just felt the temperature drop in the room. I found my voice. It came out sounding like chipped ice, not belonging to me at all. Marcus. He shot up from the sofa. The relaxation on his face didn't just fade, it was ripped away, replaced by a mask of such profound, naked horror that it was almost grotesque. He dropped the girl's hand as if it had suddenly burst into flames. But the girl, Chloe, she just looked at me, not with guilt, not with fear, but with genuine, unfiltered confusion. Her brow furrowed, and she turned her gaze from me back to Marcus, her free hand resting on top of her stomach. Then she spoke the words that ended my life and started a new one. "You said she was moved out," she said, her voice a perplexed whine. "You said we'd tell her after. We're pregnant. We're not, I am, we're..." A strange, cold calm settled over me. The auditor in my brain took over, pushing the screaming, shattered wife into a locked room. There was no room for tears. Crying was inefficient. Shouting was a waste of energy. I took one deliberate step back, slowly lowering my carry-on bag to the floor. I reached into the pocket of my blazer, pulled out my phone, and raised it. The lens focused. I saw Marcus's mouth open in a silent no, his face pale and sweating. I saw Chloe's confused, round face and the curve of her belly under her maternity top. The camera clicked, a clean, sharp sound in the suffocating silence. One perfect, clear, undeniable photograph. I lowered the phone and looked at them. 2 specimens trapped in amber. "Get out of my house," I said. My voice was level, empty of everything but the command. "Both of you." I didn't hear them leave. I didn't listen for the sound of the front door closing. I simply walked, on steady legs, from the living room to my home office, shut the solid oak door, and turned the deadbolt. The click echoed in the small, silent space. My phone began to vibrate on the desk, a furious, insistent buzzing. Marcus, text messages, one after another, lighting up the screen. Then the ringing started. I watched the screen. I let it ring until it went to voicemail, and when it immediately started ringing again, I tapped the silent switch. The vibrations stopped. The noise outside the door, the muffled sound of his voice, the eventual desperate banging of his fist was just data. Irrelevant. The wife, Eliza Vance, had evaporated in the living room. The woman who sat in the high-backed leather chair was the auditor, and the auditor was here to assess the damage and find the fraud. I opened my laptop. The first click was the joint savings account. Our future. He had set up the password when we first opened it. I typed it in Barton Crest 1, the name of our sterile, wealthy neighborhood, followed by the number 1. Pathetic. I felt a wave of cold contempt. He was a child playing at being a man. The balance was substantial. I did a quick calculation in my head. I opened a new browser tab and, in under 5 minutes, established a new, high-security, fully encrypted personal account with an online bank, routed through 2 proxy servers. I was not just moving money, I was making it disappear. I initiated the transfer. Not 50%. That was the law. This was about justice. I transferred 60% of the entire balance. I considered it a fee for pain and suffering, with a penalty for gross negligence. With the money secured, I moved to the next item, his work email. Apex Landmark Developments, a company with a flashy logo and, I always suspected, very little substance. I had his password because he'd given it to me. Just in case. Eliza, you're so much better at tracking this stuff than I am. He wanted my help, my legitimacy, to touch his business. I wasn't looking for love letters. I was looking for liabilities. I found his private credit card statements, the one he claimed he used for client dinners to rack up points. I opened the most recent one. The charges were not for steakhouses. Austin Women's Health, a recurring copay, every few weeks, for the last 5 months. Pottery Barn Kids, a single charge for over $5,000, 3 weeks ago. And then, the one that stopped my breath, a monthly, recurring payment to South Austin Realty, the same amount, on the 1st of every month. This was not a panicked, messy affair. This was a budget. This was a plan. He wasn't just cheating on me, he was running a parallel life, fully funded, on a separate ledger. I found the attached file on one of the realty emails, a scanned copy of a lease agreement. I opened it. Tenant Chloe. I sat back, the facts arranging themselves in my mind. The baby, the apartment, the furniture. He had built them a complete, move-in-ready life while sitting across from me at dinner, discussing our Kit Miller renovation. I kept digging. I was no longer his wife. I was a hostile agent. I went into his private folders. I found the one labeled Estate Planning, created 3 months ago. Inside was a document, a new life insurance policy. The premium was high, the payout astronomical. My heart beat a slow, cold drum. I scrolled down, looking for the beneficiary designation. It was not me. The beneficiary was a legal entity I had never seen before, the Vance Family Trust. I searched my name in the document. 0 results. I searched for wife. 0 results. I was not a part of this trust. I was not listed. I was not acknowledged. I looked at the signature date, 3 months ago. Around the same time, the doctor visits began. He had built a new family, a new life, and a new financial structure to protect them. He was writing me out of the equation, not just emotionally, but legally. He was ensuring that if he died, his future was protected, and his past would get nothing. The cold, methodical precision of it was almost impressive. This was not a crime of passion. This was a calculated execution. The lease agreement gave me her full name, Chloe. It took less than 30 seconds of searching to find her social media profiles. They were public, a digital shrine to her own naivety ultrasound photos framed with tiny hearts, pictures of a newly assembled crib, breathless posts about new beginnings, and my little miracle. She was 24. I was, in effect, auditing the life that was supposed to replace mine. I didn't send a friend request. I sent a direct message. I attached the single high-resolution photograph from my living room Marcus, frozen in panic. Chloe, confused and pregnant on my sofa. My message was precise. He lied to me, and he lied to you. Meet me, or I will send this photograph to your parents and every business partner he has. The reply came in under 60 seconds. So, where I chose a neutral, anonymous coffee shop downtown, far from Barton Crest and far from her South Austin apartment, a place with high turnover and no memories. I arrived first, chose a booth in the far back corner, and ordered a black coffee I had no intention of drinking. She arrived 10 minutes late, her eyes swollen and red-rimmed behind large sunglasses. She wore an expensive maternity dress that Marcus had undoubtedly paid for. She clutched her handbag as if it were a life preserver. When she saw me, she flinched, her hand flying protectively to her stomach. She looked less like a predator and more like a child caught in a terrible storm. It only deepened my contempt for him. "Eliza," she whispered, sliding into the booth. "I am," I said. I didn't offer comfort. I was not her friend. "You're Chloe." The dam broke. The tears she had been holding back began to stream down her puffy cheeks. "He told me you were gone," she choked out, the words tumbling over each other. "He said you were his ex-wife. He told me. He said you were unstable, that you had psychological problems." I just sat there, my hands wrapped around the cooling cup, and listened. This was a deposition. "He said you abandoned him, but you wouldn't sign the divorce papers, that you were just trying to be cruel and keep the house." She was trying to convince herself as much as me. "He showed me the papers," she insisted, her voice rising. "The separation agreement, it was all signed." "He showed you forged documents," I stated. It was not a question. "We were never separated. I was in Chicago on a business trip." Her face crumpled. "But the baby," she stammered. "This was planned. He said we were building a family. He said he wanted a fresh start. He said you were the past." "The past," I repeated. The word felt like ground glass in my mouth. "He is building a future. Chloe, he's just not building it with either of us." I opened my laptop, turned it around, and pushed it across the table. On the screen was the scanned document I'd found. The new life insurance policy. She squinted at it, confused. "What is this?" "This is a life insurance policy he took out 3 months ago. The beneficiary is an entity called the Vance Family Trust. A trust I've never heard of. A trust that does not contain my name." I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a cold, quiet hiss. "Look closely. Scan the document. Is your name on it? Is the name of your unborn child on it?" She read, her finger tracing the legal text on the screen. Her breath hitched. The blood drained from her face, leaving a pale, sickly mask. "No," she whispered. "It's not. I'm not on it. You're not his new family, Chloe. You're a loose end. You're just as disposable as I am." She stared at the screen, the reality of her position finally crashing down on her. The naive girl who walked in was gone. The woman sitting across from me now looked terrified. She was quiet for a full minute, her mind clearly racing. He gave me something," she said finally, her voice trembling. "A few weeks ago. He said it was for safekeeping." I waited, motionless. "It's an external hard drive. He said it was just a backup of important work files. He said he was worried about company issues and needed an off-site copy. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with a new, dawning horror. He told me to put it in my closet and not to touch it. He made me promise one thing. He was very, very clear. He said I was never, under any circumstances, to plug it into a computer that was connected to the internet. By the time I returned from the coffee shop, the locksmith had already finished. 3 new high-security deadbolts. The key I had used for a decade was now just a useless piece of metal. My house was no longer our home. It was my fortress. I didn't have to wait long. Just after 6 p.m., Marcus returned. He must have been driving around, working himself into a state of righteous indignation. He tried his key, rattling it in the lock with increasing frustration. Then came the first knock. Civilized. "Eliza, I know you're in there. We need to talk about this." I watched him on the security camera feed, displayed in high definition on my office monitor. His hair was perfectly coiffed, his suit jacket immaculate. He was attempting to deploy the charm that had built his entire worthless career. I did not answer. The knocking became pounding. "Eliza, damn it, open the door. This is my house, too." His voice was rising, cracking the pristine, quiet air of Barton Crest. I could almost hear the curtains twitching in the houses across the street. He was committing the cardinal sin of our neighborhood. He was making a scene. "You can't just lock me out, you crazy bitch." There it was. The facade was cracking. The charming developer was gone, replaced by the cornered animal. He slammed his shoulder against the solid wood door. Once, twice. He was going to hurt himself. Or worse, my door. I picked up my phone, opened the Smart Home app, and navigated to the Landscaping tab. I pressed the button for Zone 1 Front Lawn. The sudden, sharp hiss of the high-pressure sprinklers erupting from the lawn was immediate. A plume of recycled water hit him square in the chest. He jumped back, sputtering, his expensive silk tie now plastered to his shirt. "What the hell?" he yelled, shielding his face, and, as if summoned by the scent of suburban drama, Brenda from across the street appeared, walking her immaculate golden retriever. She stopped at the edge of my lawn, a perfect portrait of feigned concern. "Eliza, honey, is everything all right over there?" she called out, her voice dripping with the saccharine curiosity that fueled our entire zip code. Marcus stood there, soaking wet, humiliated, and trapped between his locked-out status and the neighborhood's chief gossip. I leaned toward the intercom panel on my desk. My voice, amplified by the smart doorbell speaker, cut cleanly through the sound of the sprinklers. "Everything is just fine. Brenda, thank you for asking." Marcus turned, his face a mask of fury, realizing I was broadcasting to the entire street. "Eliza, turn this off." Marcus was just trying to explain his new asset diversification strategy. I continued, my voice calm and pleasant. "It's quite innovative. He calls it the parallel family portfolio. I'm just not sure it's the right fit for us right now." I watched on the monitor as Brenda's jaw went slack. Her eyes widened, and she took an involuntary step back, as if the sheer force of the gossip might knock her over. She had just been given the social event of the season. Marcus stared at the speaker, his mouth opening and closing. He was defeated, soaked, shamed, and exposed. He turned, his wet shoes squelching on the pavement, and retreated to his car. The sprinklers shut off. Silence returned. My phone rang. This time, it wasn't Marcus. The caller ID flashed a name I hadn't seen in months, a name that always brought a chill. Eleanor, his mother, the matriarch of this farce. I let it ring twice, then answered, putting it on speaker. "Eliza, I just spoke to Marcus. I cannot believe what you are doing." Her voice was the familiar imperious steel, the tone she always used when reminding me that I was a working-class girl who had married into money, that my career was an unseemly, unfeminine obsession. "You have pushed that boy to this," she continued, launching into the familiar script. "You were never satisfied. Always your work. Always your spreadsheets. A man needs support. Eliza, he needs... I cut her off. The time for listening was over. Eleanor, I said, my voice as flat and cold as a marble slab. Are you calling to congratulate me on your new grandchild, or are you calling to ask for an update on your son's pending fraud investigation? The line went utterly, profoundly silent. I could hear the faint static, the sound of a world shifting. I had taken her script, her narrative of my failings, and set it on fire. I waited 1, 2, 3 beats in the beautiful, echoing quiet. Then, I ended the call. I called Chloe. Her voice was a terrified whisper. He's been sending me messages. He's furious. He says he's coming over. He can't get into your apartment unless you let him in, I said, my voice devoid of sympathy. The hard drive. You have it. Yes, but, Eliza, he said it was just for work. Chloe, I interrupted, cutting through her panic with cold logic. You are a 24-year-old unemployed woman about to have a baby. You are living in an apartment paid for by a married man who has just been locked out of his own house. You are in possession of a piece of equipment he specifically told you to hide, and which he forbade you from connecting to a network. That is not a backup. That is evidence. And you are, at this moment, an accessory. The silence on the other end was heavy, broken only by her sharp intake of breath. If there is anything illegal on that drive, and you are found with it, you are not a victim. You are a co-conspirator. You will be arrested, and you will have that baby in custody. Do you understand me? Oh, God, she sobbed. Bring it to me. Now. Put it in a bag, take a ride share, and bring it to my front door. Do not call him. Do not text him. Do not pass go. Bring me the drive. She was at my house in less than 20 minutes, a trembling mess who shoved the small, black plastic rectangle into my hand as if it were radioactive. Please, she whispered. I didn't know. I know you didn't, I said, already closing the door. I did not go to my main office. I went to the small, insulated study in the basement, a room I designed for high-stakes audits. It contained my air-gapped machine, a computer that had never been and would never be connected to the internet. It was a digital clean room. I powered on the sterile laptop, inserted the USB cable, and watched the drive mount. He hadn't even bothered with high-level encryption. The arrogance of it was staggering. He thought hiding it with his pregnant mistress was security enough. The folders were bland. Apex contracts, investor decks, Barton remodel. I clicked on Apex contracts. The files inside were not contracts. They were spreadsheets. My blood ran cold. I work with numbers. I understand the language they speak, the stories they tell. The ledgers on my own laptop, the ones I had helped him with, told a story of a modest, struggling, but legitimate development company. These ledgers told a different story entirely. This was a second set of books. A true accounting of where the money was coming from and where it was actually going. He wasn't a developer. He was a fraud. It was a classic Ponzi scheme, elegant in its simplicity. He was taking investment capital from new partners millions of dollars and using a fraction of it to pay out fake profits to the first-round investors, creating the illusion of success. The rest of it was vanishing. I traced the outflows. The sums were massive. Hundreds of thousands funneled out every month. This was not just skimming. This was a systematic gutting of the company. My first thought was that he was funding his new life. I looked for the account numbers associated with the Vance Family Trust. Nothing. The trust was a decoy, a relatively small-time piece of estate planning to secure his new heir. But it wasn't the goal. The millions were not flowing there. My hands flew across the keyboard, my auditor brain now in complete control, the emotional devastation of the day replaced by the cold, exhilarating hunt for the truth. The money was moving through a complex series of transfers, washing itself clean. It flowed from Apex Landmark into 3 separate LLCs. Summit Crest Properties, Keystone Investments, Blue Ridge Holdings. They were shell companies, registered in Delaware, designed to be black holes. This was too complex for Marcus. He was a charmer, a handshake, and a smile. He didn't have the patience or the precision for this. This was structured. This was insulated. This was the work of a professional. I had to know who owned them. I left the basement, unplugging the hard drive. I went back to my main office, connected to my secure VPN, and began to pull the incorporation documents from the Delaware State database. I started with Keystone Investments. The registered agent was a generic legal service. I kept digging, peeling back the layers of the corporate veil. I found the articles of incorporation, the name of the sole signatory. I stared at the screen, my entire body going numb. It was not possible. And yet, it was the only thing that made sense. The name on the documents, the ultimate beneficiary owner of all three shell companies, the person who had received millions of dollars in stolen funds, was not Marcus. It was his mother, Eleanor. Marcus wasn't the architect of the fraud. He was the salesman. He was the puppet. Eleanor was the mastermind. She had been pulling every string, moving every dollar, the entire time. The contemptuous phone call, her defense of her boy, she wasn't just covering for him. She was protecting her asset. It was no longer just about infidelity. The discovery of Eleanor as the mastermind recontextualized everything. My access to his work email, his requests for me to just look over the phony ledgers. My name was the only one, other than his, that had ever touched the clean set of books. I saw the trap, fully formed. It was horrifying in its cold, maternal logic. When the money ran out, when the Ponzi scheme collapsed, who would be the logical suspect? Not Marcus, the charming, incompetent frontman. Not Eleanor, the sainted matriarch. It would be me, the unstable wife, the disgruntled wife, the 38-year-old forensic auditor who, according to Chloe, had already abandoned her husband. They weren't just planning to leave me. They were planning to bury me. I would be the scapegoat, the fall guy for their entire operation. That realization ignited a cold, efficient fire. The time for auditing was over. The time for demolition had begun. I moved with a speed that left no room for error. First, I went back to the joint brokerage account we held, the one I had left alone. I liquidated every stock, every bond, and transferred the cash another six-figure sum to my new, encrypted account. I initiated a cash advance on our shared home equity line, maxing it out, and moved those funds as well. I was scorching the earth. By the time he realized the accounts were empty, I would be gone. Second, I returned to the air-gapped machine in the basement. I made 3 separate encrypted copies of the entire hard drive, one for me, one for my lawyer, and one for the inferno I was about to start. I went back to my main office and created a new, anonymous, Proton-secured email account. The address was a string of random numbers. I composed a single brief message. The subject line, Apex Landmark Developments, your money. The body of the email was short. You are being defrauded. The attached file is the real ledger. Compare it to the quarterly statements you received. You will find several $million of your money has been routed to 3 shell companies. I suggest you contact a lawyer, and perhaps the SEC. I attached the single damning spreadsheet that showed the true flow of cash. I addressed the email to 2 people. The first was James Harrison, the primary investor in Apex, a retired oil executive who had sunk, according to the real ledger, over $8 million into Marcus's charm. He was the one who had been bled the most. The second recipient was Sarah Jenkins at the Austin Chronicle. She was a pit bull, an investigative financial reporter who had brought down 2 hedge funds with her reporting. I was not doing this out of a sense of public duty. I was not doing this simply for revenge. This was a preemptive strike. This was a controlled demolition. If the company collapsed on its own, I was the prime suspect. But if the company was torn apart by an outside force, by an angry investor and a hungry reporter, I was just another victim. I was creating a narrative that would obscure my own tracks and point the fire hose directly at the source of the blaze. I hit send. Then, I made the most important call. I didn't call the police. I called my lawyer, not the family lawyer, but the most cutthroat divorce attorney in Austin, a woman known for dissolving marriages with surgical and brutal precision. "It's Eliza Vance," I said, when she picked up. "I need to file for divorce. Today. But I need more than that. I need an emergency petition to bifurcate and distribute assets, effective immediately." "Emergency?" she asked, her voice bored. "Eliza, a judge isn't going to call an emergency hearing because you had a fight. My husband is committing financial fraud and actively hiding marital assets," I said, my voice flat and cold. "I have proof he has established a second separate household. I have proof he is liquidating funds. I need you to file this petition this morning, arguing that he is an immediate and catastrophic risk to the marital estate. I need to wall off my assets and the house before they are seized." This was the truth. He was hiding assets: Chloe's apartment, the furniture, the secret trust. I was using his infidelity as the legal justification to protect myself from his mother's criminality. There was a pause. "You have proof right now." "I am a forensic auditor," I said. "I have a full file. It is already on its way to your server." The boredom in her voice vanished. "I will be at the courthouse in an hour." I hung up. The match was lit. The legal shield was being raised. The first explosion was only hours away. My legal filings and the anonymous email were the first wave of the assault, but they were aimed at the fraud. Now, I had to deal with the mastermind, Eleanor. I had underestimated her. I saw her as a white-collar criminal, a thief in expensive pearls. I was wrong. She was an animal protecting her territory, and she had millions of dollars at stake. Chloe was a loose thread she couldn't control. A pregnant, emotional, 24-year-old girl who knew just enough to be dangerous and not enough to be smart. She was a liability, and I realized with a sudden, chilling certainty that Eleanor would not hesitate to solve a problem like Chloe. The Vance family trust was for the baby, but Chloe herself was disposable. The girl and her unborn child were in real physical danger. I called her at the South Austin apartment. Her voice was thin, terrified. "Eliza Marcus has been here. He was banging on the door. He was yelling, 'I'm scared.'" "Pack a bag," I commanded, my voice flat, leaving no room for argument. "One bag, only essentials. I am coming to get you in 15 minutes. Be downstairs." "Where are we going?" "You are going somewhere safe. I am going back home. Now stop talking and pack." I used a car service, not my own vehicle, and picked her up from the alley behind her building. She climbed into the back seat, shaking, clutching a small duffel bag. She looked like a refugee. It was pathetic. We drove in silence. She was crying, quiet, sniffling sounds that grated on my nerves. I did not take her to a hotel. Hotels have credit card receipts and security cameras. My firm, Veritas Financial Forensics, maintains a significant partnership with a local domestic violence shelter. As part of our corporate sponsorship, we fund several secure off-the-books apartments for high-risk victims who need to disappear. They are clean, anonymous, and untraceable. I made one call to the director, cashed in a favor, and got the code to one of the units. It was a sterile, beige apartment in a nondescript complex north of the city. I walked her inside, put the key on the counter, and watched her stand helplessly in the middle of the room, lost. She was now completely, utterly dependent on me, the woman whose life she had tried to take. The irony was suffocating. She finally looked at me, her eyes red and puffy, searching my face for some kind of reassurance, some kind of feminine alliance. Why are you helping me? Eliza. I turned, my hand on the doorknob. The moment for ambiguity was over. "Let's be absolutely clear," I said, my voice like ice. "I am not helping you. I do not like you. You slept with my husband. You were a willing participant in the destruction of my marriage, and you were perfectly happy to live the life you were stealing from me." Her face crumpled, but I was not finished. "I am doing this for 2 reasons. 1. The child you are carrying is the only innocent person in this entire equation, and that child does not deserve to be born into this sewer. And 2, you are now my most valuable asset. You are the living, breathing proof of Marcus's parallel life. You are the witness who received the hard drive. I am not protecting you. Chloe, I am securing my evidence. Do you understand?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face, the last bit of her fantasy life dying right there on the beige carpet. "Good," I said. "Now, I need anything else. Any other gifts? Any paperwork? Anything else Marcus, or, more importantly, Eleanor gave you?" She shook her head, looking defeated. "There's nothing. Just the things for the baby. Clothes." She stopped. Her gaze drifted to her handbag on the floor. "What?" I demanded. It's probably nothing." She reached into her bag and pulled out a large, heavy glass bottle, dark blue, with a silver cap. It looked expensive. "What is that?" "It's from Eleanor," she said, her voice small. "She came to the apartment last week to officially welcome me to the family. She was so nice. She said Marcus had told her all about us." My blood went cold. "She gave me these," Chloe continued, holding up the bottle. "She said they were special prenatal vitamins from Germany. She said they were much better for the baby than the cheap ones from the pharmacy. She was very specific. She told me I had to take one every single day. She said she'd be checking." I stared at the bottle. I am a forensic auditor. I find the rot. I find the patterns. And this was a pattern of control. This was Eleanor, the mastermind, ensuring her son's little problem was being managed. "And have you," I asked, my voice dangerously quiet, "have you been taking them?" "Yes, every day." Like she said. I walked over and snatched the bottle from her hand. The label was in German, a brand I had never heard of. "Stop," I commanded. "Do not take another one of these. Do not eat or drink anything else she has given you. Do you understand?" "Why?" she whispered, her eyes wide with a new, dawning terror. "Because," I said, turning the heavy bottle over in my hand, "I am going to have the contents of this bottle tested, and I have a terrible, terrible feeling that they are not vitamins." I left the vitamin bottle on my lawyer's desk with a note for Rush chain of custody toxicology screening. Then I returned to my fortress and began the final phase of my extraction. The anonymous email I had sent to the Austin Chronicle was a time bomb. I estimated I had 24 to 48 hours before Sarah Jenkins blew the Apex Landmark story wide open, when she did. The name Vance would be synonymous with fraud in this city. Every partner at my firm, every client, every person in my network would look at me with suspicion. I would be, at best, a tragic victim, and at worst, a person of interest. I would be neither. I would be gone. My life in Austin was a casualty. My marriage, my home, my professional reputation, all of it was collateral damage. A good auditor does not go down with the sinking ship. A good auditor finds a better ship and negotiates a premium for their passage. I picked up my phone. I did not call a recruiter. I called the direct line of the managing CEO of Kensington Advisory, the Chicago-based firm that was, on every level, the chief rival of Veritas. I had met him, David Miller, once at a national conference. He was a shark, and he respected other sharks. His assistant tried to block me. "Mr. Miller is in a meeting. This is Eliza Vance from Veritas," I said, my voice sharp. "Tell him I have a time-sensitive, 8-figure opportunity that will not wait. He has 60 seconds. I was put on hold for 10. "Eliza," his voice boomed, wary and intrigued. "This is a surprise. What's this opportunity?" "It's not an opportunity. David, it's a certainty." I am about to be the lead witness in breaking a major Ponzi scheme here in Texas. It's a high-profile case involving tens of millions in real estate investment fraud. I have all the data, the true ledgers, the shell companies, the offshore accounts. I have it all. The police, he started. The police are not yet involved, I cut in. The press is. My anonymous tip is about to blow up the Austin financial world. But that's not why I'm calling you. When the dust settles, my name will be, through no fault of my own, attached to this mess. My current professional life here is over. He was silent, processing. He understood. I need a new position. I continued, the words cold and clear. I am leaving Veritas, and I am coming to Chicago. I want a senior partner position at Kensington. I want a 50% raise on my current salary, and I want a guarantee that I am managing the new International Forensics Division. It was an audacious, almost insane demand. He laughed, a short, sharp bark of pure appreciation. You're leveraging a criminal investigation you started yourself to negotiate a job. You're not asking for a position. Eliza, you're conducting a raid. I am a top-tier asset, I stated. I am the auditor who uncovered the fraud, not the wife who got cheated on. I am giving you the chance to poach Veritas's #1 rainmaker, and I am bringing the kind of national press with me that you couldn't buy for $1 million. Kensington Advisory hires star auditor who broke Apex Ponzi scheme? That's your headline. Another pause. 50% is steep. My price is my price. David, I'll be in Chicago by the end of the week. Do we have a deal, or do I call your competitor in New York? I'll have my counsel draw up the offer letter, he said. Welcome aboard, Eliza. I hung up. I had just turned the worst day of my life into the single greatest professional leap I had ever made. With my escape route secured, I began to liquidate the past. First, I drafted my resignation letter to Veritas. I kept it short. Due to an urgent and complex family matter that requires my immediate and full attention, I am resigning my position, effective immediately. The family matter was a beautiful, dark piece of irony. Second, I called an iBuyer real estate firm, one of those national companies that buys houses for cash, sight unseen, in 3 days. I knew the house in Barton Crest was a marital asset, but my emergency court filing had, I hoped, put a freeze on Marcus's ability to touch it. I was offered a price that was at least 15% below market value. I didn't care. It was not about money. It was about speed. It was about liquidity. I wanted that house, that life, that name, off my books. I accept the offer, I said. Send me the documents. I will sign them digitally within the hour. I was selling my past at a discount. I was untethered. I was free. The Austin Chronicle story landed on Wednesday morning like a thermobaric bomb. Sarah Jenkins had done her job. The front page headline was brutal. Austin's Apex Real Estate Empire or 8-figure Ponzi scheme. The story named Marcus. It named James Harrison. It detailed, with surgical precision, the flow of money from investors into the shell companies. The financial district was in a full-blown panic. By noon, Harrison had filed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. By 2 p.m., the district attorney's office had announced a formal investigation into Marcus Vance and Apex Landmark Developments. The fallout was immediate. The bank accounts I had left them, the ones I hadn't been able to touch legally, were frozen by the first court order. Marcus was not just a social pariah. He was, in a single morning, completely and totally broke. His calls started that afternoon. Dozens of them, one after another, frantic, desperate buzzes against the marble of my Kit Miller counter. I let them all go to voicemail. I was packing the last of my things into a single suitcase. My flight to Chicago was on Friday night. Then, on Thursday morning, he called again. I was sealing a box of my files to be shipped to my new office. For the first time in weeks, I picked up. Silence. Then, his voice. But it was not the voice I knew. The arrogance, the anger, the charm, it was all gone. This was the voice of a man who had been hollowed out. "Eliza," he whispered. "Eliza, please, you're there. Oh, God." I heard a sound like a choked sob. "You have to help me," he pleaded, the words rushing out. "They've frozen everything. The DA, the investors. They're saying, Eliza, you know the numbers. You know my books. You did my books." There it was. The desperate attempt to make me an accomplice. "You can fix this," he begged. "You can explain it to them. You can show them it was just a bad quarter, a misunderstanding. You're the only one who can make them understand. I'm innocent. Eliza, I'm innocent. Tell them. Please." I let the silence stretch, listening to his ragged breathing. "All right," I said. My voice was calm, measured. "We need to talk." The relief on his end was a physical thing, a desperate gasp. Yes, I'll come to the house. Right now." "No," I said, cutting him off. "Not here. Not at my house. We need a neutral place. Professional. We'll go to Richard's office." Richard was our old family attorney, the man who had drafted our wills, a place Marcus associated with stability, with us as a unit. "Yes, good," he said, agreeing immediately. "When?" "Tomorrow, Friday," I said. 5 p.m., just the two of us. We will sort all of this out. Marcus. One way or another. "Thank you." He wept. "Thank you. Eliza, I knew you wouldn't." "Thank you." He hung up, believing, until the very end, that he was the one in control, that he could still manipulate me. I put the phone down and immediately made a second call. Eleanor picked up on the first ring, her voice a low, furious hiss. "You. What have you done?" "Eleanor," I interrupted, injecting a note of calculated panic into my voice, a tremor of the old Eliza, the one who was always slightly intimidated by her. "It's Marcus. He's in terrible trouble. Worse than the paper. He's not making sense." This shifted her. I was no longer the enemy. I was a subordinate with a problem. "What are you talking about?" "He's falling apart. I'm scared. I've managed to get our old lawyer, Richard, to meet with us, to try and fix this, to explain things." I let out a shaky breath. "Marcus is meeting me there tomorrow at 5. But, Eleanor, I can't do this alone. He won't listen to me. He's desperate. I need you." The old, familiar vanity. She was the only one who could manage her boy. "I need you there for moral support," I pleaded. "Can you come to Richard's office just a little after us? Maybe 5:15 p.m. so I can talk to him first, prepare him. Please, he needs his mother." She agreed, her voice returning to its iron strength. "I will be there. I will handle this." I hung up. The trap was set. Both mice were heading for the same piece of cheese, from different directions, unaware of the spring-loaded bar. I was closing my suitcase when my laptop chimed. It was an email from the private lab I had used, the one my lawyer had secured. The toxicology report was attached. I opened it. A long list of chemical compounds. I scrolled to the bottom, to the summary. The submitted pills, labeled as prenatal vital complex, contain no discernible vitamins or minerals. The primary active ingredient, identified at a consistent low dosage, is warfarin. I knew the name. It was a common, powerful anticoagulant, a blood thinner. The report's conclusion was clinical. Sustained daily ingestion of this dosage by a pregnant female in her second trimester would, over a period of weeks, significantly increase the risk of placental abruption or spontaneous internal bleeding, likely resulting in a miscarriage that would appear to be of natural causes. Eleanor was not just a thief. She was trying to solve the Chloe problem. She was trying to clean up her son's mess, to eliminate the heir and the mistress in one quiet, clinical, natural stroke. I closed the laptop. My last reservation, any lingering, microscopic trace of doubt, evaporated. This was no longer a demolition. This was an extermination. I was in the conference room first. I had been there for 10 minutes, my briefcase on the polished mahogany table, a single glass of water in front of me. Marcus stumbled in at exactly 5 p.m. He didn't look like the charming developer. He looked like I felt the day I found him. His eyes were bloodshot, his suit was wrinkled, and he reeked of stale fear. He saw me, and his anger, the last defense of a weak man, flared. "Eliza," he hissed, slamming his palms on the table. "You have to tell them. You have to tell them you managed the finances, that you were in charge of the accounts. This is all just a mistake you made." I looked at him, the man I had loved, the man who had planned to ruin me. I felt nothing. No, that's a lie. I felt a faint, cold pity. "I will not say anything, Marcus. You bitch," he roared, his voice cracking. "You did this. You destroyed me." "No," I said, my voice quiet, cutting through his rage. "You did this to yourself, and so did your mother." As if I had summoned her, the conference room door opened. It was 5:15 p.m. Eleanor swept in, her face a mask of iron-willed matriarchal concern. She was here to save her boy, but she was not alone. Behind her, filling the doorway, were two men. They were not lawyers. Their suits were rumpled, their badges were clipped to their belts, and their expressions were flat, bored, and professional. Austin PD. Eleanor stopped dead. Her performance evaporated. She stared at me, then at the detectives. "Eliza, what is this? What have you done?" I stood up, pushing my chair back. "This isn't my meeting, Eleanor. This is my deposition. This is where I turn over my evidence." I gestured to my briefcase. "Inside, you will find the hard drive from Chloe's apartment. You will find the complete second ledger for Apex Landmark. And," I said, meeting her eyes, "you will find the full toxicology report from the lab on those vitamins you gave to Chloe." Her face, so perfectly composed, dissolved. The blood drained from it, leaving a sick, waxy, white-gray color. Marcus, who had been watching in confused panic, swung his gaze to his mother. The last piece clicked into place. "Mother," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Mother." "What did you do?" Before she could answer, the door opened a final time. Chloe walked in. She was not the trembling girl from the coffee shop. She was flanked by a sharp, expensive-looking woman I did not recognize. Her new lawyer, one I had found and paid for, anonymously, with the last of my pain and suffering fee. Chloe's hand was steady as she walked to the table. "I'm here to give my statement," she said, her voice clear and strong. She placed the dark blue glass bottle on the center of the mahogany table. It landed with a heavy, definitive thud. The detectives, who had been waiting for this cue, moved. One of them turned to Eleanor. "Ma'am, you are under arrest for attempted bodily harm and multiple counts of financial fraud." The other detective turned to Marcus, who was staring, paralyzed, at the pill bottle. "Marcus Vance, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud." As they pulled Marcus's hands behind his back, he twisted, his face purpled with a final, impotent surge of hatred. He locked eyes with me. It was a look of pure, unadulterated loathing. He was, at last, seeing me clearly. I did not flinch. I simply smoothed the front of my silk blouse. I picked up my briefcase. I gave a single brief nod to Chloe, a sign of respect, an acknowledgement of a debt paid. Then I walked out of the conference room. I walked past the shocked face of Richard, the family lawyer, who had just been alerted to the commotion. I did not stop. I did not pause. I walked out of the building, into the 5:30 p.m. Austin sunlight, and got into the town car that was waiting. I went straight to the airport, checked my single bag, and boarded my one-way flight to Chicago. I did not look back. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to know where you are listening from. so please drop a comment down below so we can connect and share our thoughts. Be sure to subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories, like this video, and support by hitting that hype button so this story can be heard by more people.